Hello and welcome to
Hi.
today's talk. Hi Emma. Today,
Hello.
today's guest speaker is Emma Aldous, who actually lives just up the road from me in Kegworth. And we've come into contact through an online group that we're both in. And Emma is a pregnancy yoga teacher. She teaches birth preparation, baby massage, and baby know-how and baby yoga online. So
Yeah. Busy
she's
woman.
very busy, and she'll be telling us a bit more about that and how you can access that at the end of the call. And Emma's had quite a journey into doing what she's doing now and to parenthood, and so she's really passionate about talking about perhaps the sort of not so nice sides of the fertility journey and pregnancy and parenthood, which tend to get a bit swept under the carpet, and they can leave women feeling really lonely, like maybe they're a bad mother or there's something wrong with them for not just floating through all of this whole time, feeling absolutely amazing. And so she's trying to let women know that it's all completely normal and all the feelings are acceptable and you're far from alone. So I think there needs to be a lot more of this kind of conversation. And can you tell us, Emma, a bit more about how you've ended up doing this work?
Yeah, so a very kind of potted history because it's quite a long one. So when I was in my 20s, I got married, we wanted to have children, and that's when I discovered that actually things were not that simple. I've always had gynecological issues and they've always been brushed aside as normal and kind of sort of part of the process. And well, the upshot of that was that my first marriage fell apart. Mm-hmm. Which was interesting to say the least. Fertility has a lot to answer for. Yeah. Then I met my second partner and we went down the same kind of route. Had a couple of very unsuccessful IUIs and quite a bit of a traumatic rocky road with that. And then went straight into IVF and we got very, very lucky. And we became pregnant first time with my son Douglas, who's now 5. And then I kind of entered into parenthood, if you like, with a bit of a bombshell because I hadn't actually thought past the getting pregnant because that had just been the focus for so many years. Mm-hmm. I was 38 when I fell pregnant and 39 when I gave birth. So bearing in mind I started in my 20s, that's all that I'd thought about for years and years and years. Wow. And then we would like to have more kids, but the IVF journey is just not something that either of us really wants to embark on again. And now we're going down the adoption route, which is still not for the faint-hearted. So loads of kind of varied experiences, I guess. And the biggest one for me was not realising how much my experience wasn't just down to the fertility journey and actually down to just the journey of wanting to have a child from the minute you choose to conceive through to having them. And also just a lack of preparation for every next stage and always just focusing on like the little bubble that you're in, which you do have to do, but also not knowing what's coming next, not preparing myself for what was coming next and how much harder that kind of makes the journey really. And just knowing that, it is a big, long journey. There are loads of different parts to it.
So can we just, before we get into all of that, you said a minute ago that you'd sort of always had gynecological problems that had been brushed aside and told they were normal. Can you just describe a bit about what you mean?
Yeah, so when my periods started, they definitely started with a bang. I think I was about 13, slightly later than some of my friends, and they were always really heavy periods, really painful periods. I remember my mum saying this is just not normal, and we got to the doctors and I got prescribed pills to stop periods altogether. I remember going to see a gynecologist who just left me crying as a teenager because it was just a kind of like, well, this is what periods are like, love, they're painful, get used to it, you're a woman, that's just how life is. If you're finding it really hard, you can have some pills for when you go on holiday and you can have some pills for when you do your exams. So, when I was doing my GCSEs when I was 16. But every month for me I bled so heavily I couldn't leave the house. It meant time off school. I would be in so much pain. I would throw up. I would have diarrhea. And I had that my whole life and was always just kind of brushed off that, well, you know, you've just got painful periods. And really, even when I was trying to conceive the first time, we got kind of a mild, well, you might have PCOS, you might not have PCOS. You know, we could just...
So for anybody watching who doesn't know, that's polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Yeah, so...
Yeah. So, sorry, well, so it's basically where you can get cysts on the ovaries. It's a painful condition, and it obviously does interfere in a big way with fertility. But also, in terms of what you're saying, I didn't really introduce myself at the beginning of this talk. And so I'm an acupuncturist, is my sort of bread and butter, but really what I'm absolutely passionate about is helping women to balance their hormones so that they're fertile and so that they get through menopause easily and, you know, without having a horrendous time, because that is awful what you're describing, and unfortunately it's really common. But it doesn't have to be like that. It's not normal, and this is why I'm so driven to help women, because I hate the thought that there's, you know, girls all over the country. There are women who are currently in school who will become my clients in 10, 15 years time, because when they discovered that wasn't normal, and now they've got fertility issues that might have been resolved. And I do sometimes work with teenagers at the moment, and I've had a client who described very much what you've just talked about. And again, you know, her mum did not want to put her on the pill and just kind of put the sticking plaster on it, because it's not getting to the root of the problem. And so she had some acupuncture and took some supplements, and through a course of treatment she brought her cycle into a regular state. She didn't have to take time off school. She didn't have to get up in the night because she was flooding, you know, and we did all of this with natural alternative treatment. So it is possible. And I just want to kind of give that message of hope to anybody that's watching and thinking, well, this is just my life and I have to suck it up, because it really isn't the case. But
yeah, and I would definitely encourage anyone, no matter where you are in your journey, right back from kind of, you know, puberty, when we're starting to go into those realms of fertility, right through to after you've had children, if you're lucky enough to have them, then whatever it is, don't accept, well, this is just how it is and it's normal, because there's a lot of that in the parenthood journey, from, you know, becoming a fertile woman or struggling with fertility in your teens through to having kids later on. There's so much of that. And it's not normal. I was on the pill for years. I got a lot of judgment because of that. I was on mefenamic acid for a while. A few drugs thrown at it, but largely, you know, you're a woman and this is what it's like to be a woman. So
that's terrible. And you're so right about, you know, not just accepting the first thing you're told, because I saw a picture on Facebook only yesterday, I think, that was a woman with her 2 children, and she said, I was told it was highly unlikely that I would be able to have kids, and thankfully I went for a second opinion, and the next person didn't think that the situation was so dire, and now she's got 2 kids, and she's like, they're just my absolute life and goal, you know. And imagine if she'd just taken that first person at their word and thought, well, I'm just going to give up because there's no point. So so you're a very resilient woman, because you've been through a lot to get to where you haven't. And you know, when you're saying I sort of decided, I knew I wanted to be a parent, and I started trying for a family in my 20s, but you finally had your first child at 38. That is a long time to be going through that monthly roller coaster of, you know, waiting, have I ovulated, have I conceived, and then the disappointment, and then try again the next month.
And all the platitudes of stay positive, be relaxed, just go on holiday. I've got a friend whose aunt's sister's cousin, 3rd time removed cat, you know, just you know, went to the Maldives, and then they got pregnant when they got back, and you're like, yeah, I've been trying for this long. A lot of experience of all the different random things that people say to you, the attitudes you get from doctors, and the kind of sort of journey at large. It's been an interesting one, and well, we're still in it because we want more than one, and we're still fighting for it, I suppose. I'm in my 40s now, so I guess it's not impossible for me to fall pregnant, but it's not something I would expect to happen after my kind of history, if you like. So I'm definitely a kind of, if this path doesn't work, then we'll just keep finding another path until I get where I want to be, and I'll just keep trying.
Yeah, because of course,
you know, what else can you do?
Yeah,
I'm not good at accepting no.
No, and I think like we talked about before we got on this call, that, you know, the desire to be a parent is very overwhelming for some people, and I'm including men in that, because I think everybody thinks men just kind of go and sow their seed, whatever, but I think there's lots of men who actually also feel that time pressure to become a dad. You know, they don't want to be an older parent, and I think even if you didn't have the history that you have of you know, fertility difficulties in your 40s, it is a whole different ball game, because I mean, I'm 45 now, and I won't have another biological child because it's just too old. You know, even if I was sort of in a situation, I know there are women who are doing it, but for me personally, it just feels like a step too far. But if I didn't feel like my family was complete, then I would definitely be, you know, like you, looking at the adoption route or something like that. And can you say a bit more about, you know, when you were going through all those years of trying, was there anything that people said that really did help? Did you speak to anybody who'd been through something similar?
To be honest, it was more, you see, I'm an advocate of trying to get into groups of people who are in the same situation as you, who are quite similar to you, for support. And obviously, you know, when I first started out on this journey, counselling wasn't something that they particularly offered. And it was more, you know, going on to online forums, because it's not something that you talk about in public. You know, the minute you say, oh, I'm infertile, people kind of go, because they don't know what to say to you. You know, when you're in those conversations where people say, oh, are you planning on having kids? Oh, you know, you're married now, don't wait too long. And you're like, well, actually, you know, I'm on my 3rd operation, I'm on my 50th blood test, and, you know, I'm infertile, I can't have kids that I know of, and, you know, we're really struggling. That does tend to make people kind of go, and then all the platitudes coming out. So my only resource was to kind of go into forums online, and even then I found it quite hard, because you come across people who are in such different circumstances to you, but with the same problem, people from different walks of life and different personalities, and because it's so removed when you're in a forum, it's very easy for someone to say something that, because they don't agree with what you're doing, or they don't agree with the way you're doing it. So I did find that really, really tough, but I did find, you know, a handful of women who were in a similar situation to me, who felt the way that I felt, and we kind of chatted to each other, and that's where I kind of got my support and really, you know, found my help. And that's kind of what I do. I mean, I know what I do is kind of post conception, if you like, so I'm not in the fertility field like yourself, but so many of the people that I do see, you know, have been through the fertility journey. I know that about me, so I'm still kind of connected to that field. And, you know, unfortunately, just because you become pregnant doesn't mean that you have a child, and there's that whole other kind of, you know, sort of world that I help support people through. But that's kind of what I do. It's trying to find, you know, a small group of people with, you know, a common problem, who are similar, who can, you know, you're kind of looking for friends, basically. Because even though, you know, I've had a fertility journey, I could sit and talk to you about your fertility journey. Some of the things I say might make you go, oh God, I don't agree with that. And not that you're meaning to kind of sort of demean how I feel, but it's very easy just to say something, you know, off the cuff, and really offend someone, really hurt their feelings, make them feel like they shouldn't have that feeling. And so, yeah, for me, it's about finding just that small little tiny group, really tight-knit group of people who are just like you. And as much as you get support from, you know, people like yourselves who are doing kind of acupuncture, who you know, and other kind of sort of therapies going for, you know, through the medical profession. Some of the doctors I've seen have been fabulous and really supportive, and, you know, I wouldn't be sitting where I am without them. But yeah, it's the kind of other parent wanting to be, it's the other parent it's the other parent that suffered the miscarriage. That's where my support has definitely come from.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I try and build through my business, really, is, and because, you know, yeah, I am, you know, the expert. Don't really like that word because it doesn't sit very comfortable with me. I think you have to have a hell of a lot of experience of one particular thing to be an expert in it. I have a lot of knowledge. I can give you loads of information. I can tell you what's normal and what's normal. But the only thing that's really going to give you that full-on emotional support, in my opinion, is somebody else who's quite similar to you, who's going through it at that time. Because you forget. Yeah, people say to me when they see me, like, oh, but what did your IVF involve? And, you know, what test did you have? And I'm like, well, it changes year on year. And, you know, my specific medical case is very different from yours. And it's really, really difficult. And you forget, you know, especially some of the favourable bits, you kind of, like, you know, let it go by the wayside. Yeah. And like, well, how did I feel? How did I? I don't know.
I mean, I think that's quite a clever sort of biological feature that we have as humans, that we need to forget pain, because I think they say that if we didn't have that ability, women would only ever have one child, because that can be so painful. And and I mean, I think there's so many interesting things that you're saying, and I think, you know, times have changed a lot probably in our lifetimes, because I expect that back in the day, you know, perhaps in our parents' generation, women were having babies a lot younger, and they didn't go out to work in the same numbers that we do today. I mean, we're all trying to be blooming superwoman, and self-employment, running a home, having a family, being in a relationship, traveling, you know, you name it, we're trying to do it all. And I think there's something like 1 in 6 couples, it might even be higher now, maybe 1 in 4 have problems conceiving. And I really take issue with people who, I don't think they mean anything bad by it, it's just something that people say. But when people say to a couple, oh, you know, when are you going to have a baby? Well, we're going to hear the pitter patter of tiny feet. It's so insensitive, because you have no idea whether that person's just lost a child, or, you know, maybe has been struggling for years and can't conceive. And it's very, you know, I'm the same as you. I had my son when I was 39, and through my 30s, I always knew that I wanted to have a family, but I wasn't in the right kind of relationship. And so I watched all my friends start to have a family and settle down, and it wasn't happening for me. And it was really hard and painful at times to, you know, I was happy for them, but it was that feeling of sadness, like, why not me? Why can't I have that too? And, you know, obviously now I do have a lovely son, and that's great. But I think I can't really imagine how I would feel if that had never happened for me, or what path I might have taken if I'd thought, you know, as I approached 40, that I couldn't have my own child. And so I think there needs to be more understanding from people who it's never been a problem for, that it doesn't come easy to everybody.
And this is the thing that I find really, really hard, and, you know, something that I've always kind of tried to, like, work against, and that's the kind of environment I try and make, like, through the work that I do, is that whether you are, you know, 14 and, you know, cry every time your period starts, if you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, wherever you are, trying to have a child and it's not happening, and you're undergoing all those tests and things, or you've gone through multiple miscarriage, or you've become pregnant and had, you know, a miscarriage, whether it was at 6 weeks or, you know, at 35 weeks, wherever you were in that journey, or you're a parent and, you know, it's happened for you. And it's, you know, the most fantastic thing is that we need to talk about all this stuff, because within all of those spectrums, there are bits that just are, and you know, pardon my French, a bit shit.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's fabulous, you know, to be able to have all this extra help, and to be able to have IVF and IUI, and to be able to have, you know, acupuncture treatments, to go and have, you know, whatever other kind of holistic things you look at, looking at your diet. There's so much information now, but we're not allowed to say how we feel. There's this platitude that we get of always look for the silver lining, which is people just trying to make us feel better and putting a sticking plaster on it. But also, you know, people shy away from that awkward conversation. Well, if I sat and told you my story from beginning to end, and everything that happened and everything that went along with it, you would be horrified. Like, I saw your face when I said how I endured my period, and I had those until, you know, well, probably up until I had my son when I turned 38. That was my life with kind of sort of periods. And I saw you kind of go, oh, my God. And not in a, you know, I don't want to talk about it because this is your field, but we need to have these awkward conversations. So I would urge anyone, no matter where you are at your journey, please try and speak honestly. If you can find it in yourself, if you can find a bit of strength in yourself to say the thing that makes the people go, do it, because they need to hear it. They so need to hear it. For example, this is a very kind of brief example. My next door neighbour, you know her to say hello to. We've only lived here for a couple of years. Douglas is now 5. It was about a year ago. He was starting to school, thinking about going to school. We were going out, so me and my husband were popping out. And she said, "Oh, I haven't got a little one with you." And I was like, "Oh no, he's at preschool. He'll be starting school next." Little chit chat. And she went, "Oh, you don't want to leave it too long. You need to get back in there and get at it." And I was just, it hit me like a ton of bricks, and it made me just want to burst into tears. Because at that point we were wrangling with, you know, we'd really love to have another one. And I was watching all my friends go on to have their second kids. And I just turned around and went, well, unless you got 10 grand or a way to make me fertile, that's not going to happen. And I got in the car. And then I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I've just spoken to my neighbour like that. And I kind of avoided her for a little bit. But then we spoke to her. She went, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. And I didn't realise. And she said, you don't think about what might be going on in someone's life, and I'm really sorry that I blurted that out. That must have been really painful for you. And I was like, yeah, it is, and I am used to it, and I'm sorry that I reacted in such a blunt way. Well, but sometimes it builds up, and I am a bit more of an open person, so I don't share. I don't mind, you know, sharing.
I mean,
but actually it was a little lesson for her, and if we all did that, we would all have a hell of a lot more support on our journeys.
But I mean, in her defence, she probably she saw you with your son and thought, oh well, they're fine.
Totally innocent.
It's just a sort of off the cuff comment. But you're right. Also, people could be a lot more thoughtful than they are, and mindful not to just say something. I mean, it's so hard, isn't it? Because we can't live our whole lives treading on eggshells, trying not to offend anybody about anything.
No, it's not about
Sometimes we do it unintentionally, but I think, like we're saying, these issues are so much more prevalent than anybody realizes. And you know, what I'm really interested in is that obviously your work is more to do with women who are pregnant. And so, I mean, prior to going into lockdown, you were having actual physical classes where women would come together. Do you I mean, are those classes that run in a sort of like a course with a beginning and an end date, or do people just join in as and when?
Yeah, well, they kind of run, the pregnancy side of things kind of runs in a 6-week cycle, just because if you're going to join and only do one block, 6 weeks will give you a really good benefit and a really good kind of sort of grounding in the different techniques that I teach. But a lot of people join when they're kind of 14 weeks pregnant, so because we say the first trimester, just rest, because it's the time when you feel quite tired and quite sick and you know, kind of getting through things. But you know, we can speak to you before then. And then some people join then and they just stay until, you know, they kind of sort of give birth, because it is, every class I run always starts with a check-in. So the class, I say it's, you know, bumps, babies and you, because it's always about you. It doesn't matter whether it's a pregnancy class or a baby class. We start by saying, how are you? And people always say, oh, you know, in pregnancy, it's all about the bump and what appointments I had. And in baby, everyone talks about, you know, what baby's been doing this week. And I always say, like, for the first week, I let them get away with it. And then after that, and I'm like, no, how are you? I don't care what appointments you've had, or you know what's happening with the bump. How are you? Because that's the most important thing. And people, you know, little bits start to come out, and as groups kind of sort of get to know each other, you know, people just come in and sit down and are like euphoric and will share the fantastic bits of pregnancy, that they heard the heartbeat and everything is going fine, and they had this, you know, wonderful moment where their partner felt baby kick for the first time. And then some people, you know, sometimes the same person will come in 2 weeks later and just come in and just burst into tears because, you know, they don't feel very well, they're not feeling you know, kind of sort of good in themselves, and they just need like an outlet to kind of let it all out, if you like, without someone saying, oh, but you need to be grateful for this, and oh, you need to be grateful for that, and actually just being able to speak freely about how they feel and know that it's all right. And I always start every class, pregnancy or baby, and say there is the woman over here who's loving every second, and that's fantastic. And then there's the woman over here who's hating every goddamn second, and that is not great, but it's still okay. And then there's everything in between. You don't, just because you really, really wanted to have a baby doesn't mean you need to be grateful to be pregnant. You don't have, you know, if you've got your head stuck down to the toilet for a few weeks, or you've got hyperemesis and it's the whole pregnancy, why would you be grateful for that?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you don't love your child. It doesn't mean that you don't want to be a mother. It doesn't, none of those things. It's just how you feel in that moment, and you need to be able to express it and feel it, and not be told, actually, you need to be grateful, always be grateful. And people feel this immense amount of guilt.
Yeah.
An immense amount of guilt. And, you know, it starts from wanting to conceive through to being a parent, just constantly feeling like you need to be grateful for everything, that you're so lucky. And particularly, like in my situation, I really struggled because I was like, I wanted to have a baby for so long. And then he arrived. I had done no thought about what happens actually after a baby arrives. Hit me like a ton of bricks. And I spent the first 6 weeks staring at a wall, feeding him, just going, Jesus, what have I done? Yeah. I don't know if I can do this. This is just too hard. And it's normal to feel like that when a baby arrives, have periods where you do feel really, really overwhelmed. I didn't know that. I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I was broken somehow. I thought, oh God, I must be a really bad person and a really bad mother. How could I possibly turn around to anyone after that many years of trying, my whole life focused on being able to have a baby, turn around and say, I'm not enjoying it. I don't like it. Yeah, so like within my classes, I always start saying, you know, for every woman, you know, who's over here, who's loving being pregnant, you know, enjoying the journey, love growing the bump, loves the way the body feels, you know, is just enjoying every second. There's a woman over here who's hating every minute of it, doesn't feel well, finding it really hard to connect with baby, you know, is having weird kind of like, oh gosh, should I have got pregnant kind of thoughts, all of that kind of sort of turmoil. I'm really hating it. And then everyone in between. And I said, it doesn't really matter whether you're, you know, the loving it, hating it, or somewhere in between person. What matters is that you talk about it. Know that that is normal and it is okay. Just because you wanted to get pregnant and you really want to have a baby doesn't mean that you're going to love being pregnant. You know, and the same for kind of parenthood, really. There are, you know, all the way along, there are bits of it that just are a bit rubbish, and we don't need to pretend that we enjoy those bits.
I mean,
that's okay.
I'm curious, like whether you have a specific way of making, particularly that woman that is not okay and who is hating it, how you make her feel comfortable enough and to be vulnerable and share that, because I mean that must be quite scary. Do you start by sharing some, you know, the fact that you felt like that? Or
I tend to find that as people get to know each other better, because I try and build a little tight-knit community and try not to make the classes huge, and because we go round and check in with each other at the beginning of the class, we go around and say, you know, how are you? And if you tell me loads of impersonal things, that's fine, but I will always ask, and how are you? And if you say I'm fine, that, you know, that is fine. But I think I do have a sense of how someone is feeling, you know, kind of body language. But I do kind of share, you know, when my son was only a few weeks old, I remember very vividly staring at the wall and just thinking, shit, what have I done? This is my life for the next 18 years. I can't do this. I hate it. And this is someone who's been trying to conceive since their 20s, and it took them until their nearly 40s to have that child. And I had that thought in that moment. And if I said that to the person sat next to me, they probably would have gone, me voicing something so hideous and so horrible. But it didn't mean I didn't love him, and it didn't mean that I didn't want him, and it didn't mean that I wasn't a good mum. It didn't mean that I wasn't going to go on to really enjoy it. It just meant in that moment, in that second, where I had just been struggling to feed and I was knackered, I'd had no sleep, I'd never done this before, I hadn't prepared in the slightest, and I didn't know that that's how overwhelming motherhood could feel. In that moment, it was really, truly 100% shit. Within, 12 hours, I was back to smiling again. But it's all, it's all right. And I think the important thing is to know that if you feel those feelings transiently, then that is 100% normal. But if those feelings come and they just aren't going, and it's day after day after week, then you need to talk to someone, and there is no shame in that and no harm in that. Talk to me, talk to your mate, talk to your partner, to your GP. I don't care who you talk to, just talk to someone, because there is help out there and support, so that you don't have to feel like that all the time. If you feel like that for 24 hours, it's fine. Please still tell someone. Someone, because you no idea how many people feel like that and think that they're hideous.
Yeah.
They just, have horrible thoughts about themselves, feel like it's some dirty secret that they need to hide.
Yeah.
It's fine to say, I just want someone else to take my kid, just for a little bit, because I've had enough of them and they're getting on my nerves. It's all right. That doesn't mean that you don't love them. And I will guarantee you, the second that they leave, you'll want them back. Yeah. Because that's the double-edged sword that, is kind of sort of motherhood. And that's the same thing, it's the same with kind of sort of pregnancy. But I think for me, succinctly, it comes down to maternal mental health. And for me, becoming a mum and maternal mental health doesn't start at the point when you conceive. It comes at the point when you decide you want to conceive. Yeah. And so you need to know what is normal within every kind of stage, whether you're conceiving naturally, whether it's fertility, challenged, whether or not you're pregnant, whether or not you're having a baby. It's all about maternal mental health. It's about what is socially unacceptable to say currently. Like, when my baby was born, I didn't love him.
Yeah.
That is socially unacceptable to say. Loads of people feel like that. You feel feral and want to protect them in some way, or feed them, but you don't feel this gush of overwhelming love and joy, depending on who you are, how it happened, the birth and all the things. Sometimes you need to fall in love with your child, and it takes a few weeks and the euphoria will come. But in the second they're born, it might not be there. For some people it is. And that is normal, and it is okay to say that. The relief on people's faces when I say things like this in class, of like, oh God, I'm not some kind of evil, crazy being. It's normal. We're just human beings. And so make the socially unacceptable acceptable to talk about, so that we all know it's normal, so no one's at home feeling rubbish because they think that they're wrong somehow. And then it stops that mental health spiral, and it allows us to be happier and enjoy it more. And that is about getting support for whatever stage you're in, and also, as you start to advance towards the next stage, getting prep and support for what comes next, so it does not hit you.
Yeah.
Because you've not considered it.
Yeah. I think probably, again, being in that little bubble of whichever moment you're in, it is probably a bit of superstition for some people, because if it's been difficult, I didn't struggle at all to conceive. I was very lucky. But I still was anxious throughout my pregnancy, because I knew by that point that so many people lose pregnancies. They don't even send you for tests until you've had something like 4 miscarriages, because it's so common. So if you're going into something thinking, well, I might lose this baby, it may not even come to fruition, I think there's lots of women who don't even dare to hope, or don't even dare to, decorate the nursery or buy some clothes or something, just in case it doesn't.
I was definitely one of those.
Yeah, and so, we're calling really on women to be really brave, to admit these dark, scary feelings, because they are really normal. But as we're discussing, lots of women don't talk about it, and so I think the advice would be, like you said, if these are sort of fleeting feelings and they come and go, that's totally normal, and that's kind of manageable, and it's something we all go through. If it's something that's just kind of dogging you day in, day out throughout your pregnancy, or when you're a new parent, then definitely that sounds like it needs some professional help and a safe space where you can talk. And some people may not find that in their partner or their family or their friends, and you might need to go online and do some research and find a forum, or find somebody that you can speak to. But both of us have had a lot of experience of clients. I mean, I've had clients who have successfully conceived with IVF, and then also had a very anxious pregnancy, not always had a great birth. And I'm not saying any of this to put somebody off and make them think, oh my God, I don't even want to do this anymore, but just to say, because when I grew up in a big family, second child of 4, my mum had a couple of us at home, but she was really young, and she was fit and healthy, and she, maybe looking back, I think she was quite lucky. I don't remember her ever saying this bit was difficult, or I struggled to breastfeed, or I couldn't do this or that, or I didn't have the water birth that I wanted, or and it wasn't until I started doing the work that I do that I realised it isn't easy for everybody. It doesn't always go smoothly. In fact, more often than not, it doesn't. And therefore, it really is a kind of miracle when it does happen. When somebody carries a baby to term and has a healthy baby, and the mum's healthy. And so, I think it's so important what you're doing. I love it. I'm really pleased that you're up the road, and I can just imagine that the people in your class feel very held and supported, to kind of, and that they're not alone, that they can get through whatever comes their way, because they know that there's somebody there who gets it and who can understand. And so, bravo, it's brilliant. And so I know that because of going into lockdown, you have had to take your business online, same as I have, and so you're offering an honesty bar, aren't you? Can you just say a bit more about that?
So basically I'm still teaching my classes, so I'm still holding pregnancy yoga every week on a Tuesday night. I'm still offering birth preparation workshops even, so the antenatal side of it and birth preparation, and the baby massage with Baby Know-How and baby yoga every week. So it's just on an honesty bar, so there's a recommended price of £20 a month to access all the classes and come into the group. But like me, your livelihood's just kind of been swept out from underneath your feet. That shouldn't be a barrier to accessing this support. So donate what you can, and if nothing is what you can donate, that's absolutely fine. I just think everyone needs access, and I think it's even more important right now that we have that access, because those conversations to acknowledge that sometimes socially unacceptable stuff, or even to celebrate the brilliant stuff, it isn't there because we're stuck at home. And so you're not just going to the little church hall coffee morning that's a quid for a cup of tea, and meeting that person who's gone like who just whispers very quietly in the corner, I had a really shit night, and for you to go, oh yeah, so did I. We're missing that part, and that's what we need. So that's what I'm trying to keep going, basically, and that's what my class is about anyway. It's just another way to access finding other people who are just like you in a situation.
Actually, you've made a good point, because we all know how we go onto social media and we're just seeing everybody's highlight reel. So you might even be looking at pictures of somebody who's pregnant and they look glowing and wonderful, but in fact, if you met them in real life, they'd probably be spotty and look knackered because they've put some filter on their picture. And lately, 1 or 2 people I know have posted a picture, of their child looking really happy, dangling from a tree, or playing in water, and then they've said the 98% of this walk was them screaming or me carrying them or shouting at them or something and them having a complete meltdown. But I'm only presenting this like best bit to you, and it is what we do, but we just,
one of the most commonly told lies, the most commonly told lie in the whole world is I'm fine. That, how are you? Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you? Yeah, I'm good. None of us actually mean that, but it's not socially acceptable to say, yeah, I'm good, because you are actually good. It's then not socially acceptable to say, do you know what, I'm having a really shit day.
Yeah.
And we do a little with our close friends, but we don't, it should be socially acceptable. When people do share like that, we tend to kind of go, okay, Chris,
yeah,
over here. Exactly. And it's not, it shouldn't be like that at all. It should be like, oh God, tell me what happened. Let me put kettle on for you.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to create.
Yeah.
And
I think you're well on the path to it, and I'm sure this is going to be really inspiring to the women watching it. And so where can people find you online?
Yeah, so if you search Bumps, Babies and You, I have a Facebook page that I've just started up because I'm changing names. Fantastic time to rebrand. And the group, I've got like a group, so you just request to join the Bumps, Babies and You group, and all the information is in there, so you don't have to commit to paying anything or sign up or give me your email address or anything like that. Just join the group, come on in. And I just pop in and out and announce the Zoom classes and things, so you can access them as and when you need.
Brilliant.
And if you're still on your fertility journey, then best of luck. It can be a really long one and a really hard one, but you aren't alone. You're definitely not alone. And I know how painful it is to look at people who've already got their babies and think, well, it's all right for you because it worked. But I know how tough that is.
Yeah.
I don't know how tough is it for it not to work, but whatever stage you're at, just know that you need to just keep talking, because there are thousands of us out here in exactly the same position.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, brilliant to talk to you, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person once this lockdown's lifted, and who knows, maybe we can do a sort of in-person workshop or something to help all those
how amazing would that be?
Mothers, something to put on our list, our wish list. So I will put all the contact details in the notes with this, and obviously anybody can contact you or contact me if you've been triggered by anything that we've talked about, or you just want to have a chat and check in and say what it's like for you. So take care, Emma. Thanks so much.
All right, take care. Bye.